Episode number 56 of That One Time on Tour is brought to you by the band Squirrel Tap. Squirrel Tap is a working-class punk band hailing from southwest Wyoming, made up of three friends who don't take things too seriously and just want to have a good time. Squirrel Tap's debut album, Cover Your Nuts, was released on May 17th and is available digitally on Apple Music and Spotify. You can check the band out on Facebook and Instagram at Squirrel Tap Band. Now here it is, their new single, Vegas Days.
This is Denis Buckley from 88 Fingers Louie, and you are listening to That One Time on Tour.
Run for the road, 'cause it's going on and on. We'll be driving through the darkest night until the
Hey, everybody out there in podcast land. This is Chris Swinney. As always, I am your host for that one time on tour. If this is your first time joining us, this is my podcast where I get to sit down with somebody in or around the entertainment industry. And sometimes I just talk to people that I want to talk to that aren't in the entertainment industry at all. So I want to give out a huge thanks to everybody that checked out last week's episode with my good friend and my tattoo artist, Jacob Harrison. He owns Permanence Tattoo Gallery over in Anderson, Indiana. I want you guys to go check that out if you are local here in central Indiana. I had a wonderful time with Jacob, and I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. It was a little bit different, and I hope that the tattoo machine during the conversation didn't freak you guys out too much. So things going on with me. I just got back from a little road trip. I went down to Birmingham, Alabama to see my in-laws. We did a lot of swimming. My son Silas caught his first fish. We did all kinds of good stuff, but it's nice to be back in Indiana where it's not quite as hot. We're supposed to only be in like the low 80s this week. So I'm looking forward to that. And a lot of cool stuff this week. If you are a music fan, I'm a huge Alexisonfire fan. They released a brand new single called Complicit. I want you guys to go check it out. It's on YouTube, Spotify, it's everywhere. So go check out the new Alexisonfire called Complicit, and you will really like it. Speaking of Alexisonfire, Dallas Green, their melodic singer dude, he has City and Color, and they just put out a brand new single as well called Astronaut. It's the polar opposite of the new Alexisonfire, but it's so good. You guys need to check out Astronaut by City and Color. All of the normal streaming sites, you can check it out. Trying to get some of the guys from Alexisonfire to be on the show in the future. So, stay tuned for that. I'm sure it's going to happen at some point. So this is the point in the show where I have to tell you guys about my sponsors. We only have 2 sponsors this week other than Squirrel Tap, the really cool band we played at the beginning of the show. Make sure you check out their record, Cover Your Nuts. It's a really cool title. I think you guys are really going to like it. So check those guys out. They are out of Wyoming, for our first band from Wyoming. So thank you very much, Squirrel Tap, for sponsoring this episode. You're helping this podcast keep going. And 2 other companies that are helping this podcast continue to grow and do better is Permanence Tattoo Gallery. I've already told you about it. Jacob was on the show last week. So if you guys are in East Central Indiana, go to Anderson, Indiana, downtown Anderson at 1007 Meridian St and get tattooed by Jacob, man. They will hook you up. Just tell them that I sent you over there, and he'll do it up right. He specializes more in like American traditional, but they have artists that do anything you want. So head on over to Permanence Tattoo Gallery. Also back as a sponsor, we have Artist Flags. They make backdrops for bands when they're on tour, like you've seen the huge backdrops that bands have, the little scrims on the side of the stage. They make everything that you need. Their prices are amazing. So hit up Cody over at Artist Flags. Just go to artistflags.com. They're also on all the social medias at Artist Flags. Tell them I sent you. Maybe they'll hook you up. They're an awesome company and you need to support them. Speaking of support, if you don't have a band and you don't have a company and you still want to support this podcast, because it does cost money to keep this podcast going. And it's so nice when people get involved at the Patreon level. It's $5 a month. You get all kinds of exclusive content. So if you're interested in that, head on over to patreon.com/TOTOT podcast and check it out. There's exclusive episodes. There's all kinds of cool stuff over there. We have 10 patrons right now. So we're getting up there. I think some of the podcasts on there have like 50,000 patrons. So we're going to get there one day. But if you'd like to get involved, head on over to Patreon and check it out. If you don't want to do that, this is always going to be a free podcast. And, that just helps us out. But if you don't want to do that, you can just subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. That really, really helps us out and helps us gain visibility. This podcast has grown exponentially in the last few months. And I just want it to keep going and keep going. There's so many people out there that like music, and especially some of the music that we cover. And I just want to get this in front of them because I think they'll really enjoy it. So if you don't want to get involved at Patreon, just head on over to wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review, or just tell a friend, share us on Facebook, whatever. Speaking of Facebook, this is where I just keep, segueing into stuff. Speaking of Facebook and all the other socials, we're at TOTOT Podcast. So make sure to follow us on there. I hang out mostly on Instagram. So check us out over at all the socials and help us grow there as well. If you are in a band and you are looking for some cheap promotion, or you have a company that makes really cool stuff that you think that I would like and that my listeners would like, send me an email, tototpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll work it out, man. I work with all budgets. I just want to keep the lights on, so hit me up and we will figure it out. Now is the time in the intro where we do the top 5 list. Yes, we are doing a top 5 list this week. We didn't do one last week because I was busy. I was getting ready to head out of town. But now we are doing one, and it comes from a patron. That's one other good thing, too. If you become a patron over at patreon.com/TOTOT podcast, you get priority stuff like your top 5 list will be read first. Everything is a priority for the patrons. So this top 5 list comes from David Wilkins over in Texas. David was like our first or second patron. He's been on the train for a while. So thank you very much, David, for the support. David's top 5 list is top 5 underrated punk bands. So let's see what he's got going right here. At number 5, David has Happy Happy. He says his lyrics are as good or better as anyone else's. The Beatles, Bob Dylan, Fat Mike, Chris Hanna, none compare. I'm not familiar with Happy Happy. I do need to check them out. And with your, glowing recommendation, I definitely need to check them out. I'm not really a lyric guy. I'm more of like a riff guy, a music guy, but good lyrics do make a big difference. So I'm going to check out Happy Happy. Number 4, David has the Vandals. I'm a big Vandals fan. And he says, I get that they are big, but they should be so much bigger. They should be headlining arenas. I kind of agree with that. I mean, I just think they write really good, concise, like pop punk songs. I guess just pop songs. And the lyrics are really funny and catchy. And I mean, Josh Freese is their drummer, and that dude is unreal. So I think he's played on like every session recording ever. He did like Kelly Clarkson and NSYNC and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. That's not why they should be big. It's just cool when you have a drummer that's that good, But yeah, the Vandals, great choice, man. I think they should be a lot bigger than they are. Number 3, he has River Phoenix, or of course Phoenix TX is what they changed their name to. They're a better version of Blink 182 is what David says. I've got a soft spot for Blink, but Phoenix TX is a great band. I remember when they had their big hit single. I can't even remember what the name of it is now, but they kick ass, and I've seen them live a few times. They're a great band, so nice choice there. Number 2, he has Days in Days. That's DAYS, the letter N, and then DAZE, Days in Days. He says they are growing like crazy, but the fact that they aren't bigger really shocks him. So, I don't know anything about that band, but now I'm going to check them out, and you guys should as well. Days in Days. Number 1 on David's list, he has Jughead's Revenge. By far the best punk band behind Propaganda, he has in parentheses, to come out of the 90s California punk wave, but that lawsuit destroyed them in their prime. I love Jughead's Revenge. I've got a buddy of mine that's actually playing bass for him now, and he's going to be on the show soon as well. But Jughead's Revenge is great. I think they should be a lot bigger. So you guys, if you don't know anything about Jughead's Revenge, you need to go check them out. I think you really love them. So David, thank you so much, not only for the top 5 list, but thank you for being a patron for as long as you have. You kind of got the party started, and man, you really make a difference for this podcast. So thank you very much. And if anybody else wants to become a patron, just, hit David up and ask him how cool it is. But thank you, David, for the top 5 list. Now, I'm going to give you my top 5 list. I'm not going to do it in any particular order because it was hard for me to order these out. But these are punk bands that I think don't get enough credit, or they get overlooked quite a bit, or they should be bigger than they are. They're underrated punk bands. So just in no particular order, I'm going to say Inspection 12. Great kind of poppy, technical, then some indie stuff too. Band out of Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, I believe. I think Inspection 12, they've been around forever. And if you want to really get into them with the song that's kind of the entrance song, you should check out their song Red Letter Days. It's a great song, and you won't be sorry. They're a great band, so check them out. And they only have like 1,000 people that like them on Facebook. They should have like 50,000 people. So check out Inspection 12. Next, I have an Old Fat Records band that I actually checked out, and they're still doing stuff. Screw 32. They're a band that I got into back in the late 90s, maybe mid 90s. They put an album out under the influence, is either under the influence or under the influence of bad people. I can't remember what it was called, but it was on Fat Records and it was awesome. And Screw 32, they're from the East Bay up in Northern California, and you need to check them out. I think they're still playing, and they never got, the accolades that some of the other fat bands got, and I thought they totally deserved it. So check out Screw 32. Next up, I'm going to say Paper Arms. Paper Arms is an amazing band out of Australia. And I've talked to them a couple times about maybe being on the show. They're actually kind of broken up. They got back together, then they got broke up, and then they got back together, and then they played a reunion show and blah, 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 blah. I don't know what they're doing now, but they're so good. They put out 2 records that just are killer, man. Anything you get from them, they're amazing. They're on Spotify and everything. So check out Paper Arms. They're from Australia, and I love them, and hopefully they're going to be on the show soon. But you guys won't be sorry. It's kind of a Hot Water Music kind of vibe mixed with some other stuff. I don't even know. It's a great, great band, and they write really, really killer songs. Speaking of a Hot Water Music type of vibe, my next band is Hot Water Music, and you're saying, oh, they're huge. They're huge. Yeah, they're a big band, but they should be way bigger. I mean, they've been killing it, man. I mean, everything that they've ever put out, I'm a fan of, and they should be a bigger band. I don't know why they're not a bigger band. This new record they put out, it even kicks ass. I mean, Hot Water Music is amazing, and I can't wait to get my Hot Water Music tattoo. And I'll show you guys when I get it. I'll post it on social media. But Hot Water Music is on my list. And like I said, this isn't in any particular order, but my last band I'm going to say is Bracket, another Fat Records band. They have a new record coming out in August on Fat Records. It's their 9th full-length album. Bracket is so great with all the weird harmonies that they do, and just, it's sort of progressive, but in like a poppy punk kind of way. And like, their influences, they say their influences are like the Beatles and the Beach Boys and NoFX and all kinds of other stuff. And their Live in a Dive record is amazing. I think we've talked about it on the show before. So yeah, if you guys don't know who Bracket is, you need to go check them out. Like, I went to their Facebook and they have like 3,000 people that like them. They should have like 1 million people. Bracket, if it's kind of like people say, I don't know if you've seen Filmage, the documentary on the Descendants, but like Dave Grohl and the guys from Blink-182 are like, if they would have released Milo Goes to College in the 90s, they'd all be living in mansions. It's the same kind of way with Bracket. I don't know why it didn't ever catch on. Like, you've heard people like Mike Herrera from MXPX and all these people say stuff on videos and interviews about how great Bracket is, but you ask your, normal punk fan and they don't know who Bracket is. They're an amazing band, and you got to check them out. So that is my top 5 list in no particular order. Inspection 12, Screw 32, Paper Arms, Hot Water Music, and Bracket. So once again, thank you, David Wilkins from Texas, for sending in your top 5 underrated punk bands. We do this every week on the show. If you guys have a top 5 lst, you can send it to me anywhere you want. All the socials at TOTOT Podcast, or you can hit me up at TOTOTpodcast@gmail.com. But I have talked a lot. This is a really long intro, and I'm going to get into this week's episode. I got to sit down with my buddy, Mr. Denis Buckley of the band 88 Fingers Louie. Now, 88 Fingers Louie is a huge band for me. I got into them probably in 1997, 1998, and I love them. I can't say anything else about it. Dan, Mr. Precision Voklinski, their guitarist, recorded 2 of my first band's records at his studio, The Bomb Shelter, and I don't know. They've been an important band to me for a very long time, and getting the chance to talk to Dennis about everything, because Dan's been on the show before, but to get Dennis's perspective, which is a little bit different. Dennis had a son as soon as the band kind of got going and got signed, and just that perspective of how hard it is to keep a band going when you have a child and you're a new father. And, I did all my kids and stuff after I was out of my band. But that whole perspective of Dennis is a lot different than Dan's perspective. And I really enjoyed having Dennis on the show because I got to kind of get the full circle thing of how the band went and how it broke up and got back together and broke up again and got back together. And the great thing about 88 Fingers Louie is that they are a band again. They have reformed, and they've been a band now longer than any other era of the band. They have a great new record that came out last year called Thank You for Being a Friend. At the end of the show, I'm going to play some songs off of that record. But you guys have to sit back and relax and enjoy my conversation with Mr. Denis Buckley from 88 Fingers Louie. It's a good one, and you're going to love it. So I will talk to you guys at the end of the episode, like always. Here's my conversation with Denis. Let's go. And I'm on the line with Mr. Denis Buckley from 88 Fingers Louie. How are you today, Denis?
Hey, Chris. Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm glad we could fit this in. I know you've got your tickets to the Avengers tonight, so I take it you're a big fan of that, right?
Oh yeah, I'm a full on nerd for all the comic book shit.
Are you into Game of Thrones?
Much to my girlfriend's dismay, not yet. I tried a few years ago and kind of fell off with it, but she's making the big push to to watch it. So I'm gonna rev it back up soon, I think.
I mean, it's pretty good. I got into it on like the second season and I had to go back, but my wife and I are addicted to it. So it's on tonight. I'm pretty excited for that.
Oh yeah, she's like, as long as we're back from the theater before Game of Thrones, we're good to go. So.
Awesome, man. So I've got you on the show today. I want to let you know, I've known Dan for a really long time. You and I have talked over the internet. I think we've met a couple of times in person, but 88 Fingers Louie is a huge band for me growing up. I'm not that much younger than you, but I got into you guys fairly early, like on the first record. I have an 88
awesome.
I have an 88 tattoo on my leg, so it's a big honor to have you on the show today, man.
Wow, man. Thank you very much. You have one more 88 tattoo than I do.
Yeah, it was funny. I used to, when my old band, Chronic Chaos, my first band, we recorded 2 full lengths at Dan's studio, and he had his little 88, like 8-ball, and I had my big, like gangster guy from Back on the Streets on my leg, and he's like, man, your tattoo's way better than mine.
Did he tell you the story behind that tattoo?
No, he didn't tell me the story behind that.
Well,
could you elaborate a little bit?
Little insider baseball here. So the first time we went on tour, I guess or in Europe, that would have been like the start of 96 and the end of 95, started 96, sometime around there. And I don't know if we had started the tour yet or if we had gotten to, basically we had a day off in Belgium before we had played a show.
Okay.
And while we were in Belgium, Dan, Joe, and Glenn, who was drumming for us at the time, said, oh shit, let's check out this tattoo and piercing place. And I think it might have been like maybe the promoter of the show also worked there. So they basically got hooked up with tattoos. I have no tattoos on my body whatsoever.
Okay.
But when they said, oh, we should get 88 tattoos, the first thing I thought of was, that's kind of a curse. If you put your own band, that's like wearing your own band t-shirt. You know what I mean? Like, you know, there's just some things you don't do. So in my head, I'm like, maybe I'll get like my eyebrow pierced, but I'm not gonna get a tattoo because, you're putting a curse on the band. Of course, everybody laughed it off or whatever. 4 months later, we broke up for the first time. I'm like, yep, those goddamn tattoos did it. Yeah, I
mean, because when you get like your significant other's name or whatever, it always ends in disaster. Like I have my children's names on me. I have a dog that I loved my whole life that passed away. I have my dog's name on me, but I don't have my wife's name on me because I want to stay married.
Right. You don't have a Johnny Depp situation where you've got to change it from Winona forever to Wino forever.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So I want to go pretty far back. I know you were just recently on a buddy of mine's podcast, what was it? This Was the Scene. I just listened to that the other day. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, Mike's a great guy.
So we might touch on some of the similar places, but I'm very interested in, how you got into music when you were younger. Like I said, you're a little bit older than me, not very much older than me. So what was your entrance into music and it being a thing that you wanted to pursue?
Probably listening to a lot of my dad's cassettes and 8-tracks. I'm from the next generation where 8-tracks were actually still a relatively common thing, at least in the early to mid 70s.
Yeah.
So a lot of hand-me-downs, not so much from my dad, but other family members, and they always went into dad's car stereo first, or his, stereo system. So a lot of 70s music. And then my brother and I shared a room in the early 80s, and we started listening like crazy to this. I think it was called the Lost Beatles tapes. It was a radio program that ran for, I don't know, 3 months, something like that, maybe less. But we were so fascinated by the Beatles. Just, having heard, the White Album and Let It Be and all that from my dad, but then taking it a step further and being like, oh wow, okay, this Beatle sang this song, and this Beatle, did this one, and this is what this song was about. And I'm a year and some change older than my brother, so I'm probably 8, my brother's 7, and we're like totally just sponging up all this Beatles stuff.
Do you remember what it was about those songs? Like, was it the melody, or or did you just, it was all encompassing?
Oh, it was fully the melody. When I heard Yesterday by the Beatles, I don't want to say I broke down, but it was one of those things where, like, I can remember even being as a kid and having my the hairs in the back of my neck stand up. Like, fuck,
yeah,
this is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in my life. And then it's funny, growing up, before, when girls still had cooties, Paul McCartney was my favorite my favorite Beatle. And then, those first couple breakups in, high school, where you're like, oh, girls are the devil. And I'm like, John Lennon, you you're speaking my language right now. So it was definitely melody at first, lyrics a little bit later on, but Beatles are definitely the number one reason that I got into music. And I realized between that and Kiss a little bit later, I realized that, I wasn't going to be able to rifle off, baseball stats or football stats to my friends. I wanted to say, hey, Love Gun's a great record. Let's talk about this song, or, let's talk about, Paul McCartney's crappy, 1987 album or something like that. I realized pretty early on I was not going to be the, in my mind, I guess, the typical kid with following sports and whatever.
So did your love of the Beatles from that young age, did that influence when you guys covered Help in the future?
Yes. And that is completely my blame. I take full responsibility for that fucking nightmare of a cover. But
I think it's pretty awesome, man.
Thank you. Well, you know what? It also helped that, recording with Mass, he was a huge Beatles fan, and that's one of the things that I bonded with Mass over really quickly, was a mutual love of the Beatles. And he's like, what would sound good over here would be like, oh, if you do like a little higher harmony, like the Beatles do it. And in my head, I'm like, yes, I'm going to turn 88 into the Beatles. This is going to be fucking great. And, yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So 88 formed in 1993. Can you kind of take me through how you guys got together and how the band started?
Yeah. I had just met Joe toward the tail end of 92. It might have even been New Year's Eve of 92 going into 93, because a bunch of us were all gathered at one of the guys from the Bowie Wolves had thrown a party, and I had just met these guys through a friend of mine in college that was friendly with those guys. And shortly after, so this would have been like right at the start of 93. After doing some record shopping, Joe said, oh, Eric's gonna come and try out singing for the band I have going with my friend Dan. I'm like, oh, cool. And then I found out that they were going to be rehearsing probably 10 minutes from where I was living at the time. And I said, yeah, I'll swing by and show some support. And a couple of Bowie Wolves went with us too. And, we knew it was going to be like kind of a stop off to watch or try out. And then we are going to go get, Cokes at Denny's or something like that. Or, typical, 19, 20-year-old stuff.
Yeah.
And anyway, at the audition, Eric kind of, quickly kind of rushed his way through stuff, and you could tell he wasn't really comfortable doing stuff. And so everybody was kind of like, oh, well, we gave it a shot. And then just when I thought everybody was going to stand up and, walk upstairs out of Dan's house, one of the Bull Wheels guys, I want to say it was Daryl, could have been Bob, their old bass player, but one of the guys said, "Well, Buckley, you're here. You should try it out." And I knew I liked singing, but I had no delusions of ever joining a band because I grew up wanting to be a firefighter, and that was my chosen path. But Daryl, whoever said, give it a shot. We've heard you sing Dag Nasty in the car or whatever. And
were they doing covers? Was like the audition like with cover songs?
Yeah, it was all covers. Like I remember I did. It's funny that I can actually still remember this. I did My Right by Screeching Weasel, and I did Through My Fingers by Peg Boy. Were the two. Maybe another one that I'm forgetting, but I know definitely those two songs.
I was always kind of like blown away by the scene in Chicago. So like, were you already into punk rock because you guys were actually doing like Chicago punk bands? I think that's really cool.
Oh yeah, I mean, I got into Chicago punk rock probably around early part of '88. No pun intended. But that was more on the bigger scale. That was like your big Naked Ray Gun shows, and Screeching Weasel, and to some extent Ministry, because I was super into Ministry at the time as well. And then it wasn't until, honestly, I don't think it was until probably the time I met Joe and Dan and the Bull Wheels guys that I was going to the smaller club shows, and really kind of figuring out, there's a significant local scene here. Not everybody is, playing to 500 seat places. We're playing in basements and garages. And
do you remember the first time you went to the Fireside Bowl?
Oh yeah, I think we played the first Fireside show.
Okay, because my old band, that band I said that I was in a long time ago, Chronic Chaos, like we played up there a bunch with a bunch of different Chicago bands. Like living close to Indianapolis, it was just like the first place you go. You go there or Louisville or wherever. But Chicago was such a big deal for us living where we lived.
Yeah, it was really kind of crazy how it happened. And if we didn't play the first Fireside show, we definitely played one of the first probably three. But it was a benefit show. A bunch of Chicago bands all got together to play this benefit show because we were going to open up a record store to rival the one that was right next to the Metro in Chicago.
Okay.
It's long since gone. It was a place called the Clubhouse, but these guys want to do it like 100% DIY type of thing, kind of modeled after the Dummy Room, but not quite the Dummy Room. And I know it was us. I know it was Apocalypse Hoboken. I'm pretty sure either the Bull Wheels or Oblivion or both played. I remember I was sick as a dog and I almost didn't want to do the show, but we played. And there's if anybody still has the 88 Fingers toting 40s and fucking shit up 10-inch,
I have it.
A lot of the photos in there from that first Fireside show, and the ones where I'm looking especially pale, it was because I was probably singing with 102 temperature.
I actually,
like that.
When we recorded with Dan for the first time, I believe it was like in 2001 or 2002. I was like, man, do you have any like rare 88 stuff? And he was going through his garage and he just gave me that 10-inch. And I always thought I was so cool because I didn't know anyone else that owned it,
Yeah, that's awesome. But this benefit show, the money actually never went to going to start a record store. They decided they were going to start a magazine, and that magazine became Punk Planet.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Man. So you guys got together in '93. Like, was it right off the bat in that rehearsal? Were they digging what you were doing, or was it kind of like a longer process?
I after Eric tried out, I gave it a shot, and about I think it was 1 or 2 days later, Joe called and said, "Hey man, we discussed it. We want you to sing in our band." And I said, "Okay, cool, but I don't know what kind of plans you guys have, but I'm going to be a fireman. Like I'm not, I'll let some scrappy punk band get in my. I mean, like I had no delusions other than we were going to play our friends' basements or we were going to play, parties or stuff like that. I didn't think anything beyond like a show or whatever. And then things kind of through all sorts of craziness. Things just kind of picked up for us relatively quickly. And before you knew it, I was out of town when the Chicago Fire Department had their entrance exam, and I completely ignored it because we were up in like, Toronto or something like that.
So how were those like first few years? Because I know like they're shortly after becoming a band, you guys had the relationship with Fat and started putting out the 7-inches and whatnot. So how did that come about?
That was kind of a sneaky thing on Joe's part. We had recorded and released the first 7-inch on our own. It was self-titled, but a lot of people called Happy Anniversary. And I don't know. I want to say it was a few weeks or months after we put out this first 7-inch that we had money from shows and record sales or whatever, and we got a few $100 scraped together, and we wanted to go to Sonic Iguana to record because we really liked the way the Queer's Love Songs albums sounded, as well as Screeching Weasel. So we went there to record. I want to say, it was the songs that ended up on Go Away and a couple others.
Because you guys had like Go Away and like The Teacher 7-inch and Wanted. You had a lot of 7-inches that came out around that time, right?
Yeah, so we recorded the songs that were ended up on the Go Away 7-inch, and then The Teacher Gets It 7-inch. But at the time, I think we were just looking for local representation. We were going to kind of see what locally we could get a label going with. And while we were doing that, Joe said, "I think I want to send something to Fat Mike," because Fat Records was relatively new at that time. Maybe I think they put out like the Lagwagon and First Propaganda record.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, don't do that. You're just going to get, you're just going to get heartbroken. Like,
was it just the blind like address where you just send stuff to?
Yeah. Yeah. It was a PO box. It was like send away for, records, t-shirts and shit. And Joe, threw a letter together, wrapped it in a cassette and threw that to Fat Records. And I don't know, it was under a month later. Joe got a call from Fat Mike saying he liked what he heard. He wanted to put out a record. So we we found out from Joe, and we were just like, how is this happening? Like, how is this real life right now? And then that was, so the band as it's known as 88 Fingers Louie started in April of '93. By August of '93, we were on Fat Records.
That's insane. What was like Fat Mike's thought process behind like, let's do a 7-inch? He didn't just want to start with a full length. He wanted to go straight to 7-inch.
He wanted to do 7-inch because we were at the time the only band that he's heard that he hadn't seen live yet.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But he liked the songs enough to say, look, let's put out the 7-inch and then I'll get you guys, at least a Chicago show with us when we come through town. And so it was, Go Away had come out, and maybe a month or some change later, No Effects came through. I think it was when the Longest Line EP was out, and they came through with Face to Face.
Okay.
So we met them. Yeah, we met them at that show. And Mike was super, super stoked. He's like, you guys are probably the youngest band I've ever wanted to sign. And yeah, we'll have to talk about like tours and stuff like that later on. And, at the time, everyone's just like, okay, well, whatever tour you want to send us on, let us know,
Yeah.
But ironically, we were kind of limited to what we could do at the time. Not so much because of me, but Joe was actually going to college at the time. And I'm sure he had an agreement with his mom saying, do your band, but don't fuck up your studies.
Yeah.
So, I remember right around that time, we got an offer to do some shows with 7 Seconds, and we couldn't do it because Joe was still in school, and, a couple other things. But
were you guys working with a manager or a booking agent, or this was just strictly you guys and Fat?
Yeah, no, just us and Fat. We had no management. We didn't, to fast forward 20 some odd years, we didn't have a booking agent until relatively recently.
Oh, okay.
I take that back. We had a guy that booked one tour for us, but everything else we'd been doing 95% of the time on our own.
Okay. So after that all happened, I mean, what I tend to remember, because like I I was fairly young back then, but I was into the Fat Record stuff because I always liked No
Yeah.
Effects. I remember hearing you guys, and it was weird to me because then, later on, the first full length came out on Hopeless.
Yes.
So, like, was there some sort of like break with Fat, or what happened there?
That was it was a break in the sense that we sent demos of behind bar songs to Fat, and he picked out of the 10 songs I think that we sent him. He liked maybe 4 or 5 of them and said, "Okay, come back to me with another 5 really good songs." And I know I was proud enough to say no, but honestly, and surprisingly, I think the rest of the guys were feeling the same way. Like, no, we put all of our effort into writing songs. We're not going to just throw them away. And
was Fat paying for the recording at that point? Or were those like demos?
These were demos. These are actually demos. So no, this was all out of our own pocket at the time. And we'd already recorded the, when Go Away, and the only thing, now that I think about it, Fat paid for the Wanted 7-inch because we, the Go Away stuff we'd already recorded, and he wanted to put it out just based on that, but we'd already paid for that recording.
Yeah.
So Wanted was, I believe, the first, and besides a teacher gets it, I think that was the only other thing that Fat paid for. But anyway, we went back to Mike and we said, we really like these songs. You want to, give them another listen or whatever? And he's like, I think you just need to switch a couple things around and to make them really good songs. And I was certainly confident enough to say, well, I like these the way they are. If we don't do a full length with Fat, maybe we can do another 7-inch with them. And
yeah,
the other guys are like, no, we demoed these songs with the intention of putting out an album. That's what we want to do. So Mike goes, well, I appreciate you guys being, sticking to your guns. He's like, no hard feelings. I've got a guy that would love to put out your record though. And he introduced us to Lewis and Hopeless Records. They had a friendship and business relationship, I'm sure, at that time. So we had the direct introduction to Hopeless from Fat after that.
And how was it with Hopeless? I mean, like, it seemed like they were like all ready to go, like they loved you guys already, or was it like a courtship?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they had I'm trying to remember what he had heard. Oh, I think they had heard, one of the Fat 7-inches. I'm sure that's what it was. And because we hadn't toured out in California.
You guys were on one of those first Fat comps as well too, right?
We were on Fat Music for Fat People.
Okay.
That was the thing that kind of broke us. That was, they definitely gave us the most exposure. But yeah, Hopeless from the beginning, they're like, we love these songs. When do you want to have an album out? We said, well, we'd like to have it out by the end of 95. And he goes, cool. How does fall 95 work? We're like, yeah, okay. So then immediately we booked a West Coast tour that Hopeless paid for. We started talking about ideas for, a video, which the video turning into I've Won. And it was kind of off to the races from the moment we said yes to work with Hopeless, and that relationship stayed that way, through the cycle for Behind Bars and then getting back together and doing the Back in the Streets thing. It was the same thing. Like, these songs are great. When you want to put it out, here's when we'll put it out. Here's when we want you guys to go on tour. And it was great. It would have been great sticking with Fat too. I won't lie and say that we, over the years I hadn't thought about like, oh, should we have maybe listened and changed some stuff around? But life's what life is. That's the best way I can put it.
So you guys broke up in 1996, which, I mean, that's only 3 years after the band got going and right after, the full length came out. Was that just kind of, tensions in the band and just different personalities? Is that what caused that?
Oh, it was all me.
Okay.
I might have had some hesitation to talk about it a couple of years ago, but no, it was all me. My son was born in August of 95. I was going back out doing shows almost immediately after he was born, and
it's got to be
by
tough,
the time,
man.
Yeah, yeah. And by the time, summer of 96 was rolling around, I was in Europe for the better part of 6 weeks, or 4 weeks, I should say. Well, maybe it was 6 weeks. Anyway, long fucking time. Uh, doing this West Coast tour with Good Riddance. I call home to check on things, and my wife at the time was like, "You got to get the fuck home." The band's like, "We got to keep fucking going. This is fucking great." And it was literally just a tug of war between, okay, I can't be. It's clear I can't be both a father and a punk rock singer right now. Something's got to give. And I grew up with enough Catholic guilt and whatever morals I still hang on to know that this music thing was only supposed to be a goofy hobby anyway.
Yeah.
I'm going to go home and I'm going to do the dad thing. So really, before I had a chance to talk to the guys about it, I had just kind of alienated myself. And at one point we got up to leave to go to, the next show, and they held a band meeting right outside of our tour van. They're like, "We figured you're ready to quit any minute now, so we're just gonna save you the grief, and we're just gonna agree to part ways." So we were only 10 days into I think a 4 or 5 week tour with Good Riddance, and we turned around and went home after that. And it was a bummer, The only one that was talking to me on that long ride home was Glenn, and ironically, Glenn was talking about his new band, the Alkaline Trio, and how they were gonna start doing shows. And I'm like, "Yeah, good luck with that." Yeah, right, yeah. Good luck with your good luck with your pop punk band.
That's funny. So you're talking about your son being born and whatnot. Now, the song that was on Back on the Streets, Joy Boy, which that's about your son and the whole thing. When my son was born, I played him that song like every day for like 2 months.
Oh man.
Because that song always meant a lot to me anyway. But then when I became a dad, it was like the lyrics meant a lot more to me, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was an easy and incredibly difficult song for me to write, just because it was so specific. Anything else I've written, with probably the exception of Joy Boy, everything has just been based on an idea, or based on somebody else's situation. But Joy Boy was me saying, "Oh, this is what it's like to be a dad. This is what it's like to have a kid that was who was born at the end of August. He was supposed to be born until the end of October, so we were talking 6.5 weeks premature. We 30 days and still in the nail unit of the hospital, wondering if we were ever going to take him home, and all that shit." But the irony is, years later, when we did the 2009 Chicago show, Liam was there with me, and I'm like, "Oh, we're going to do Joy Boy." He's like, "Cool, I'm not going to stage dive to that. It's not fast enough." So he waited until we played Blink or whatever before he took it first to stage dive. I'm like, "No, this song was written about you." He's like, "Nope, not fast enough. Give me a faster song to stage dive to." So that's what he ended up doing.
Well, I've seen you like post stuff about Liam, your son, on Facebook and whatnot, and about his musical tastes and everything. Is it totally lost on him that his dad was in this like seminal punk band, or does he kind of think it's cool?
He's a ball buster now. But when he was in probably middle school, here's how crazy things had gotten. By the time he was in middle school, 88 was broken up in a long, never in a million years was this band ever going to get back together.
Yeah.
But he's in middle school. I'm going to a parent teacher conference, and I'm sitting down waiting to hear that my kid runs his mouth too much and is distracting, and all the things you worry about hearing from your kid's teacher. But before they even started this girl said, "I just have to let you know, I've been a huge 88 Fingers Louie fan ever since I can remember." I'm like, "Oh, what? Okay." And she's like, "Yeah, my husband and I went. I think we saw your last show at the Fireside, and we were talking about that for I don't know, another 5 or 10 minutes." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Does this mean I'll get you a shirt if you give my kid straight A's?" We started joking around about shit like that, but yeah, and then he brought in Joy Boy to play at Show and Tell one time.
Oh, that's cool, man.
My dad wrote a song about me. Here it is. And, and then as he got a little bit older and I gained custody of him for a number of years, after his mom moved to Minnesota, I never, I wasn't gonna be the kid, just like my dad was with me. I wasn't gonna be the type of father that was gonna like force feed, music to the kid. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna play you stuff in the car, and if you like it, you want to ask questions, cool. But you know, if you don't like it, no big deal. Your mom's side of the family listens to a lot of that, Garth Brooks and Toby Keith and all that shit. Like, you're not going to hear that in this car.
Yeah.
But you don't have to like everything you hear. But he picked up on it, and I think it was a lot of the, certainly Minor Threat. Probably Minor Threat in Operation Ivy were the first two big bands that he started really getting into. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, if you like Minor Threat, here's Dag Nasty, here's the Bad Brains. Oh, you like Operation Ivy? Well, here's some Specials, here's some English Beat,
That's
and then
cool.
yeah, and then he like a lot of kids do. They kind of go out of the way to listen to different stuff than their parents. So he fell down the I should say fell down. He got into dubstep and stuff like that, and like the 2008, 2009, whatever the heck it was. He was, or 2010. He was getting into stuff like that, but he and then he came around again in another circle and listens to like Fiddler and that kind of stuff now. But he I stopped being cool to him because he he at one point he just started to tell me, he's like, you know what, Dad, something's different about your voice now. I'm like, yeah, I took voice lessons. I'm singing correctly. I'm not singing, to blow my voice out. He's like, yeah, but you sound kind of whiny now. I liked it better when you sound like you were angrier. So he wouldn't go to 88 shows. Like, he went to the 2009 reunion show.
Yeah.
And then he went to like one show after he turned 21. He went to a show, but that was so he can get drunk with his friends. He didn't give a shit. But
so he's saying that your vocals, like in 2009, were whinier.
yeah.
Okay.
Basically. And then but and you know what, kudos to him for inheriting the ball busting, because that's definitely a Buckley trait. My brothers and I that's all we do when we see each other is poke fun of each other. But as much as he didn't think I was cool anymore, come Ride Fest every year.
Oh, he's asking
Hey,
for
Dad,
tickets, I'm sure.
What's going on with that VIP stuff, huh? I'm like,
yeah. So you guys broke up in 96. You got back together in like 98. You did Back on the Streets. I just remember hearing that record and just that first sample from the Blues Brothers. We're getting the band back together. Like, it was so great for a guy like me who loved 88 that was getting back together. So I have a story kind of when you guys broke up the next time, but I want to hear, how was it when you guys got back together in 98?
Oh man, it was kind of crazy how kind of big the reunion kind of came. I didn't think, and maybe because I wasn't really plugged into, I wasn't really playing music in between, in between bands. I'd goof around here and there with friends, but I wasn't playing shows in other bands or anything like that. So I kind of stopped paying attention. But
Hopeless had gotten fairly large by that point too. They had a lot of
Hopeless
success.
had definitely, yeah, they definitely had gotten bigger, and I didn't realize that in that year and a half how kind of bigger our stock got. And then we had already told promoters we were back together. I don't know that we had made an official announcement yet, but we were getting ready to be booked at a bigger show later in the spring in 98. But by around March, probably February, or not long after we got back together, before we started recording the new record, we were practicing, and one of us got a page, because it was the pager days. One of us got a page from one of the guys at the Fireside saying, our headlining band's running late. Can you come down and play a couple songs? And we're like, yeah, as long as as long as nobody knows that we're going there. So we all drive down together, but one of us, and I'm looking back, I'm sure it was Dan, because Dan has cool ideas like this. We basically we didn't walk into the fireside together. We walked in kind of separately. So we didn't want to arouse any sort of suspicion. So we all
because it would be normal for you guys just to be there anyway, right?
Yeah, right. So, I did my thing. I went right into the bar and ordered a shot and a beer. And then we found out that the band in question that was running late was Link 80. We're like, oh, this is perfect. We'll be Link 88 for a couple songs.
Link 88, yep.
Yeah. So we went up and, nobody was really saying anything, but at what point we were literally on the stage picking up the band that played before. We were picking up their gear, and we hear somebody go, "Holy fucking shit!" And I just turned around and I said, "Hey, everybody, we're Link 88." And then we went into Pent Up, I'm sure was the first song, and the entire fireside erupted. It was like, oh shit, we made the right decision here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like, yeah. So it was from the once word got out that we were back together, it was every show it just felt like it was going to get, you didn't think it could get crazier, and it did. It just got, bigger and crazier and just more insane.
So how far apart were the recordings of Back on the Streets and then the split that you guys did with Kid Dynamite? Because I know that was kind of the last official thing you guys recorded until later on when you got back together again, right?
Yeah. Well, they're both done at Sonic Iguana. We recorded Back on the Streets in March of '98, and then we recorded at the very beginning of '99 the songs for the Kid Dynamite split, because we had also recorded that same session. We also recorded the song from the Short Songs for Short People, the
okay.
30 second Fat Records comp. So we did that song. Another song that I can't think of the name of the comp that came out on. We basically recorded five or six songs in this early '99 recording session. So yeah, basically almost a full year apart between.
Well, I remember Dan was telling me like the sessions for Back on the Streets, that was when he started actually becoming like an engineer and learning from Mass. And he said there'd be like, he'd be up at 3 or 4 in the morning doing his own producing of his guitar tracks. And
yes.
it was a 24-hour a day thing, right?
Yeah, he really, Dan and I bust each other's balls a lot. A lot of people think that they see it on stage and think, "Oh God, these guys still fucking hate each other." And it's not true at all. We literally just love poking fun of each other. And when he started showing an active interest in producing and in engineering, I didn't take him seriously. I just remember thinking, like, "Dan, just let Mass do his job. Why do you got to control everything, you fucking weirdo? Let him,
Mr. Precision." That's why.
And I remember one of the times I said something, to poke fun of him, and Mass is like it or not, man, he's picking up some ideas, and he's a quick learner. I'm like, oh fuck, okay. Well, if Mass has already given him his seal of approval, then I guess I'll let him do his thing. And then same thing. We were staying above the studio. Mass had a 2 or 3 bedroom thing up there, and couches, maybe 1 bedroom and a set of couches. Anyway, we were staying up there, and sure enough, every once in a while you hear Dan tiptoe across the room to go downstairs, and I'm thinking, is he pissed off? Is he, going to go outside and pout? What the fuck is going on? And sure enough, you'd kind of, I'd open up the door and I'd hear the sound of him, turn the lights on in the control room. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's literally sleeping. He's eating, sleeping, and shitting this recording right now.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So you guys broke up after that, was it still in 98 or was it 99?
99.
Okay.
99. Ironically, same time of the year, spring, summer of same time we broke up in 96. It was that relatively at the same time of year. in 99.
Well, here's my story about that, and I've told Dan this a million times, and I think I even told Joe this the last time I saw Joe. But so I was in this band called Chronic Chaos. We recorded like 2 full lengths with Dan. We were on this little tiny record label out of Florida. We weren't anything big, but we toured all the time, and we had this tour coming up that was starting at the 513 Club in Atlanta.
Oh, sure.
And I found out that you guys were, I think you were maybe touring with AFI. I can't remember. Yeah. And you guys were playing the day before our tour started. So we drove down early all through the night to get to Atlanta. We hang out in Atlanta all day. We go to the show. And as soon as we walk in, they're like, oh, 88's not here. They broke up.
Oh, yeah. Well, as fucked up and as shitty as all that was, the guy that booked that tour was a fucking prick, because we told him, we hadn't even started that tour. We were driving to our first show when things kind of came to a head. But any good promoter would have immediately called up the booking agent would have immediately called up the promoters in each town saying, hey, you still got AFI, but 88's dropped off. We found out later that this guy was waiting until 24 hours before we were supposed to play, or 48 hours before we were supposed to play.
To let them know, right?
To let them know, yeah.
Was Fury 66 on that too?
They're on some shows. I can't remember how many, but yeah, they were supposed to be on a good chunk of that tour.
Well, I swear that like the first time I actually saw you guys, and this was like maybe before the first time you broke up, I can't remember, but at Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana, at this little record store called Stevie Ray's House of Wax. And I think you guys, guys were with Fury 66 then, or maybe it was just you guys solo with locals. I can't remember, but.
Well, if it was Fury 66, we didn't meet those guys until 98.
So okay, so it might have been a different show, but I remember seeing you guys, and that's when I had a couple of the 7 inches already, but I think that's when I bought Behind Bars, and I'm pretty sure I bought it off of one of you guys.
Oh, no kidding. That's awesome.
Yeah. I actually, the funny thing was I was going through a bunch of stuff the other day, all these like keepsakes that I have, and my first checking account when I was in college, I went to that record store and I bought Back on the Streets with a check, and I have the return like check stuff.
No way.
Yeah. Oh, in the memo, I put Back on the Streets, 88 Fingers Louie, because I always kept track of what I bought with my checks.
Oh my God.
Hopefully you guys got a little bit of that money. Probably not, but
we did, the royalties as they were structured back then, they certainly weren't, quit our job worthy. But we could afford the occasional sofa or love seat or whatever. Like it
they kept you guys in love seats and sofas for years after that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So now we're at the point in my timeline. I have this nice little piece of paper with notes because I like to hit everything. But
sure.
At this part in the timeline, I'm very interested. In 2000, you were in this band, The Story So Far. You guys put out When Fortune Smiles on Hopeless, this EP.
Uh-huh.
That EP for me, I mean, I know I've heard in other interviews with you and different people that maybe you weren't that stoked on the production quality, but those songs were wonderful, man. Can you tell me about how that came together?
Well, that to talk about The Story So Far, I have to bring up the
new one.
Yeah, no, I wasn't even going to go there. You son of a bitch.
Well, I want to go there because when I first heard about them, I was like, oh my God, Dennis is putting out something else. And then I went and I heard it. It was some pop punk bullshit.
Yeah, no. What basically our story so far happened kind of overlapping with 88, and this is kind of a shitty thing to admit. I don't think I talked about this on Mike's podcast, but the last tour, the AFI tour, I knew was going to be my last. I knew at some point I was going to tell those guys, if it's not my last tour, you guys have to at least give me 6 months because I'm over touring. So before I left, I was living pretty close to the Fireside at the time, and I ran into Jeff Dean, who I knew from him coming to see us in Vegas, and he was talking about how he moved to Chicago, and some other Detroit friends of his were here as well, and they were looking to start a band, and he gave me a tape, just the music, and I think probably with the idea that I was gonna like listen to and maybe see about, any other singer buddies that would be interested in this. And I got the tape. I listened to it, and then I ended up calling him. If it wasn't the morning I left for that tour, it was the night before, or something really close. And I basically said, "Listen, dude, I really like this. I'm gonna quit 88 after this tour." So, if you're down, I want to pick this up when I get back from tour, in 5 weeks, whatever the hell it was going to be. He's like, yeah, all right, cool. And then I saw him 3 days later because we only drove 12 hours and then split up. So then, 30 within the first months after being back home, I already had the story so far. We were already writing and working on the songs that became that EP. And in my head, it's total jealous bullshit, but it was, I wanted to put out, I had already heard that Dan and Joe wanted to keep 88 going with a different singer. And I'm like, no matter what happens, I'm going to be the guy in 88 that puts out some new music first.
It was a competition, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
did your stuff with Hopeless? I mean, I know that EP came out on Hopeless. Did it just carry over, or you just got a hold of Lewis?
No, I got a hold of Lewis, and he's like, dude, you're killing me. This is you quit the band for the second time in a row, and you still want me to put out another a record? I'm like, hey, I'm just, it's not your typical Hopeless fare. So but it'd be really cool. And we talked about it, and basically we agreed to, and I don't know the proper terms for this, but it was basically, we're going to help distribute this thing.
Okay.
We're not the recording, the artwork, all that you guys have to pay for yourselves, but we'll help distribute it. So it was, some sort of distribution agreement. But what killed me with that was, whatever time of 99 that came out, he only promoted that for like 3 months, and then he stopped promoting it altogether.
Dude, I worked at a record store, Karma Records in Marion, Indiana, when that came out. And I remember seeing it, because I did all the ordering. I had like Chris's punk section, and I had all this different stuff. And I remember, like, I saw it. I knew it was coming out through the little magazine that we got. I ordered like 10 or 15 copies. I had posters from Hopeless, but then the next month's issue of our little distributor thing, it was gone.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It was, and it was a bummer, and it kind of soured me on Hopeless for a number of years. And fast forward to, I guess, what, six years ago now, when we started hearing about the other story so far, we had somebody in the band confirmed that we trademarked the name. Like, we actually went and got it official. So there's been a couple of attempts to reach out to their management about, hey, let's talk about this. You guys don't own the name. But we've been blown off, and it's just got to the point where I'm like, there's no point in fighting over a band that was around for a 5-song EP and some change.
Has their management said anything back to you at all?
No. Well, I take that back. Somebody in the management wrote one of us, it wasn't me, one of us, and said something to the effect of, you don't have a leg to stand on here.
Yeah.
This band's significantly more popular, which is 100% correct. But we, I don't know, every once in a while someone gets a fire under their ass, and they're like, you know what, we should try this again. I'm like, it's going to cost us more legal fees to say, oh, we're the Story So Far. And then they have to change their name to, like, the Story Too Far or something like that. I don't know. Well, I don't know what the fuck they do.
I tell you what, I'm going to make it my goal. I'm going to try to get one of them on the show, and I'm going to question them about it, man. Cause I'm team Chicago is what I am.
Oh shit. All right.
You can co-host with me when we get them on there.
Oh, that'd be good. Hey, we got a special guest host. You motherfuckers.
It's a total trap, man. We're just going to get them on the show. So, that album, I mean, how did it sell for you guys? I mean, it just kind of went away. I was hoping there would be something else after that, but I know you guys played shows and whatnot, but what was the demise of that band?
So from 99 to 2001, we did the EP, and then we recorded songs that Oh, I remember what it was. We did the EP. 2000, we were actively playing shows here and there. But again, the story so far to me was going to be a much more low key band. I didn't think
Yeah.
anybody else in the band really wanted to go on tour. So when we did shows, it was Midwest only. But then we ended up doing Crazy Fest in 2001 in Louisville, and to gear up for that, we recorded basically an EP, a demo EP to hand out to labels that were there. We had actually used that same demo when we did CMJ later on that year as well. And basically, we got back from some show. If it wasn't, maybe CMJ was before Crazy Fest. I can't remember the timeline now. But anyway, near the end of 2001. Near the end of 2001, we got an offer to do the West Coast with the Suicide Machines.
Wow.
Which everyone's like, yeah, dude, fucking stoked, let's go. And I said, I have a full-time office job. I'm not quitting another job to go on tour.
Yeah.
I can't do it. And they're like, come on, dude, this is the Suicide Machines. Or, we're already through the magic of Detroit. Those guys were already real tight with Jay and those guys. Anyway, and it was like, no, man, let's go. They have a new record out. They're going to tour behind that. Let's fucking go. And I'm like, guys, I really can't do it. Like, I have, for the first time in a long time, I wasn't working some temp job that I was only, going to work for 60 days and have to find another job. Like, I had a legit job. I had no vacation time. So they're like, well, we're going to still do it. And I said, well, if you're going to do it, you're going to have to do it with a different singer.
Yeah.
And, and I admit probably some ego was involved, and I got off the phone. I'm like, there's no fucking way they're going to do this. They can't replace me, And they did. And you know what? I'm happy they did, because why not take this opportunity to go out and play some shows with the Suicide Machines? Like, I should have quit a job and done that. I probably could have found something back then, but I just, when I got back, but
It's tough.
So
it's tough when you're like, sort of established and you've had a job for a while and, you have a child.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I mean, I'm in that spot right now. I get offers all the time to go on the road with different bands. And I'm like, man, I teach guitar for a living. I have 60 students a week. And if I left, I might be able to get them back, but maybe not. So it's like,
there's no guarantee. Yeah.
It's a crapshoot right. When you're an adult and you have responsibilities. As much as the music is wonderful, it's so hard to do.
Yeah. I was just so burnt out. I just didn't know, in my mid-20s, I didn't know, I'm still terrible about time management. Like, don't get me wrong, but even back then, I just, the touring took so much out of me. I know people that aren't in bands or don't go on tour, they think, oh my God, what kind of person has the right to bitch about being on tour too much? Well, when you've got family and you've got financial responsibilities at home and, a new relationship or whatever, like, it's fucking, it's tough to be away. Like, the trappings that, I love the trappings of home. You know what I mean? I love my own bed. I love being at home. I've over the years, I've definitely found a good way to balance that now.
I feel like you guys have struck a pretty good balance now with the touring and whatnot that you're doing, because it seems like a lot of the stuff you're flying to a certain area, you're hitting like a regional area, and then you're flying home, and it's never more than a couple weeks.
Right. Yeah. And that's, and again, that's fortunate on our part, because in 2019, people are interested enough in us to say, okay, what's it going to take to get you guys out there?
Yeah.
Like, okay, pay for our flights, put us up, and give us a small stipend based on that. So, we've been fortunate since we've been active as a band now for what are we going on year 5, which is the longest stretch the band's been.
I remember talking to Dan about that when he was on the show. I'm like, you guys have been a band now longer than any other era of the band.
Yeah. But and you know what? Maturity, it definitely has something to do with it. But more than that, it's everybody's schedules can line up when they can line up, and
it seems like there's less pressure as well. Because you guys all have your own things going on, plus you're doing the band, so it's fun and it's not like this big looming thing over your head, right?
Right. We did Europe in 2017, and we did it just over 2 weeks. I think we played 15 or 16 shows, and I remember at like show 14, I'm like, 2 more shows. And then no one's going to kill each other, and we're going to go home.
Yeah.
And I kind of said that out loud at the airport going home, like, guys, we have just did the perfect amount of shows. And Dan, if you're listening to this, buddy, I love you, but Dan still is, hey, we could just still gone out for like another 2 weeks. Somebody would have died.
Yeah.
If we did another 2 weeks. 2 weeks in one clip is perfect for me.
Oh yeah, definitely. So tell me about the newest record. I know it's been out now for about a year. It's on Bird Attack Records.
Yeah.
I've got to say the production is stellar. I know you guys did it at Dan's studio, the Bomb Shelter. How was the writing for that? I mean, the songs are so good, like they're modern, they're up to date with what's coming out now, but it still harkens back to that old 88 sound. I love it, man. Oh,
thank you. That a lot of that credit has to go to Dan and Nat, our latest and greatest bass player. They had some riffs stored from their older band. I think Dan said he had hung on to some riffs going back to like his Break the Silence days. Yeah. And even John, our drummer, had some ideas, and I think two songs, I think he might have had 75 to 80% already done before we worked on them. So it was an interesting mixture of old ideas and completely brand new ideas, like stuff we were writing completely from scratch in rehearsals. I love all the songs that we put on the record, don't get me wrong, but my favorite moments are the ones that we captured right then and there. Like if I had my way, and we've already started talking about a new record, if I had my way, I would say, yeah, those same old ideas from years ago, leave those in the past. Let's go 100% from scratch and go. But I don't know how realistic that is. But that being said, honestly, there was the only pressure I felt was what I put on myself, and that was, last minute editing of lyrics. And if I'm honest, I could think of one song on the album that I probably finished writing lyrics the night before I went in the studio.
How is the vibe there at the Bomb Shelter? Like I said, I've been there many times. My band recorded there back in the day. I know it's still the same exact place, Dan's house. Is it relaxed in there? I mean, you guys probably, since it is his studio, you didn't have like budget restraints or anything, right?
No budget restraints, no time constraints. For the first time that I could think of, well, maybe I did this at Sonic Iguana, but I wasn't there for tracking the music. I was just like, all right, keep me posted on progress, and then when you're ready for me to come in, Dan, let's figure out the singing schedule. And I remember as we started picking out dates for that, then I started kind of freaking out, like, okay, what if my voice isn't as strong as it used to be? What if Dan and I get in a fucking fight in the studio? Because we're both stubborn pieces of shit, like,
yeah.
He's set in his ways, I'm set in my ways. And I remember I took the train out to Dan's, and just walking, the 10 minutes from the train stop to his front door. And I'm like, fuck, well, I got to give it a shot. That's all I can do. I got to give it a shot. And we did three songs a day in at four different time slots, and or 4 different days. And I would say by the time I started the second song, I would laugh as I started singing. So Dan would stop it and be like, "Is everything okay?" I'm like, "I can't believe how easy this is." And he's like, "You don't know how happy I am to hear you say that." I'm like, "Dude, I don't know if it was just me." He goes, "No, I was shitting a brick thinking this wasn't going to work, man." He's like, I was convinced that you were going to be too much of a prick and you weren't going to be open to suggestions, and it was. I I don't want to say I'll never record in another studio again, because
Yeah,
I would love the idea of checking out other places. But as far as I'm concerned, uh, Dan truly shines on this album. Making it with him was the an actual piece of cake, like
that's
a
great.
physical piece of cake. That's what it was like. Yeah.
And I gotta say, your vocals, I know it can be scary. Like, I've never been much of a singer. I always do backups for the bands that I've been in. But I know it
Hmm.
probably was scary since you hadn't really recorded anything new for so long. But man,
Yeah.
it's strong as hell on there, man. It's great.
Thank you.
And the level
Thank you.
of the vocal in the mix is way better than anything you guys had ever put out.
Oh yes, you are 100% correct there. And that was, if I was, because I didn't know shit about uh, mixing or anything like that before. I still barely have an idea, but I can't listen to any of the only other old 88 stuff I can still listen to is the Kid Dynamite split, because
Yeah.
everything else,
Production
my
on
voice
that
is
was
very,
amazing as well. Yeah, I mean, that
yeah.
was a step up from Back on the Streets. I just remember, like, Behind Bars, Back on the Streets, all that stuff. I love it. And the drums are heavy, the guitars are heavy, there's a lot of bass, but
Mhm.
it just seemed like your vocals shared a frequency with something. And I don't know if, like, the level needed to be pushed up or if they just needed EQ'd different, but it always seemed like they would just get lost once in a while.
Yeah, you're right. And the cool thing about that now is Dan, uh, with Hopeless's blessing,
Oh yeah, you guys remixed the stuff, didn't you?
we remixed and remastered Back on the Streets and Behind Bars, and he did a great job. My vocals are nice and present in the mix now, and there's guitar stuff that he did back in the day that I don't think anybody could pick up on until now. And it's great. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, there's one more thing that I want to ask you about, and then I'll
Yeah.
let you get ready for your movie. But
Thanks.
so when you guys were, I asked Dan about this because it kind of freaked me out. Last
Huh.
year or a year and a half ago, whenever it was, you guys were in Hawaii, and
Oh shit.
everybody got the text message that there was incoming nuclear weapons or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember I had talked to Dan maybe a day before that, and he was telling me about how, we're going to Hawaii. And I woke up that morning and then I saw, like, you posted something on Facebook, he posted something. What was that
Uh-huh.
like? Because it was scary for me living in the middle of the country. You were actually in the area that they were talking about. How was that?
Dude, it was insane. And I'll say this. I was the last person to get the notice, and the only reason why I wouldn't have thought to look at my phone, except I was the last person to get ready. I was in the shower. There was a rap on the door from Dan saying, "Dude, you need to get out of the shower now and get your things, and we got to go." I'm like, "Fuck, is our ride to the airport already here?" He goes, "No, there's we all got alerts on our phone. There's an incoming missile attack. It's not a drill." And I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "We're going downstairs. I think we're going to go to the beach." I'm like, "Well, wait for me." Like, "No, just meet us down there." So they all fucking bail. I get out of the shower. I see this alert on my phone. I'm getting ready like I normally do. I'm actually going back into the bathroom to comb my hair, and I'm like, wait, I'm gonna get fucking attacked any minute now. Who gives a shit what my hair looks
Make
like?
sure your hair's nice for when the
Yeah, right,
the
right,
missile
right.
goes
Yeah,
off.
exactly. I don't want to die look like a fucking idiot, but so I go downstairs. Dan and John are already, if they're not at the beach by this point, they're close to it. But Nat's downstairs and he's talking to his then fiance, now wife, and I'm trying to call out to anybody, my girlfriend, my kid, my parents. I couldn't get through, and go figure. Every one of their moms is either trying to call out or call in to check on loved ones.
Yeah.
And when I realized I couldn't get a hold of anybody, I just basically opened up my phone book in my phone and I just texted everybody I could think of, like, you know, here's where we're at. And at that point, I wasn't even scared. I was just numb. Like, okay, if this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And my girlfriend was able to get through. I was talking to her for a few minutes, and she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in Hawaii. If I'm going to go, I'm glad I'm here and not in, some shithole part of Chicago."
Yeah.
And she's like, "You're so calm about this." I'm like, "I don't feel anything."
I mean,
like,
when there's nothing that you can do, I think it almost makes you calm, right?
Right. So I literally I didn't know what to think. I really didn't know what to say. I said, I'll be back to you with an update as soon as I can. I love you. And then that was it. And then I'm sorry. I was on the phone with her when a truck pulled up and said, "Good news. There was a mistake. There's no missile cover.
The world's not going to end."
Yeah. Right. And I remember, I'm on the phone with Debbie, and I say everything's fine. It was, and she's starting to see stuff pop up on the news too. And so then we get to the airport, and that's when it all kind of hit us. Like, that's when I started shaking, like sitting down, waiting to get on that flight to Kauai. And I'm like, oh my God, this almost fucking happened. And then we turn it into, we can do whatever we want now. We survived a missile attack.
Yeah.
If I want to order that third Jack and Coke on the plane, I'm going to, because I survived a missile attack.
See, if you would have gotten that 88 tattoo back in the day in Belgium, that might have been a real attack, man.
Oh, see, you're welcome.
That's the meta moment. I brought it all the way back from the beginning of the interview.
Perfect.
Well, hey man, I've had a blast speaking with you today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. What's coming up in the future for you or for the band? Like, anything coming up soon?
Yeah, we're going to, we are going to do stuff. There's stuff in the pipe. We're doing, a couple Midwest shows, coming up. We're going to play in Dayton and in, Fort Wayne, Indiana.
I'm going to have to come up to the Fort Wayne show. That's only like an hour and a half for me, man.
Oh yeah. Let us know, man.
Yeah,
we're doing that. We're doing that.
I would think that I would get into every show for free, since I have a huge ass tattoo of the album cover.
Yes. for the low price of $8.88.
Yeah. I'll totally pay that, man.
Yeah, no, but Memorial Day weekend we're doing Ohio and Indiana, and then June we got a Midwest Punk Fest, and then we're heading up to Quebec for a festival up there. A couple Quebec area festivals in the summer and fall. And then I think at some point we're going to have to agree to stop doing shows and work on a new record.
Yeah, write a new record. That's what I want, man.
Yeah. If it was up to me, we'd have a new record out that the first few months of 99 or of 99, Jesus, of 2020. So 2020. We'll see.
Cool.
Keep that up.
So, what are the socials for the band for you, so people can check you out online?
Oh, we are at friendster.com /
you guys have an ICQ number?
Yep. Well, facebook.com / 88 Fingers Louie. We're on Instagram. I think their Instagram handle is 88_fingers_Louie.
Okay.
Twitter is / 88 Fingers Louie. We actually have a website that is in sore need of updating, but that's 88fingerslouie.net. That links you directly to the Bandcamp page where you can get t-shirts and vinyl and stuff like that.
Cool, man. Well, hey, just thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been my pleasure to have you, and I'd love to have you back in the future when you guys put out that next record, okay?
Hell yeah, count me in, man. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, no problem, man. I will talk to you in the future, and have a great day. Enjoy your movie, and watch Game of Thrones. You got to get into it.
All right, man.
Okay, I'll talk to you later, Dennis. Thanks.
Take care. Bye.
So there it was, my conversation with Mr. Denis Buckley from 88 Fingers Louie. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I love 88 so much. And yes, I have an 88 Fingers Louie tattoo. Maybe I will post a picture so you guys can see it. Joe from 88 Fingers Louie, who is actually the bass player in Rise Against, When I when I first got that tattoo, I showed it to him and he's like, "Oh dude, you get into every show for free, even Rise Against shows." But that's not always been the case. But shout out to all the guys in 88 Fingers Louie. I love you guys. And yeah, I can't wait for a new record. I know it's only been a year since the last record, but I can't wait for a new record. So I hope you guys are busy writing stuff because I'm stoked to hear some new stuff. But I'm going to get out of here. Next week on the show, I get to sit down with Mr. Vinny Fiorello from Less Than Jake. We had a wonderful discussion, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Vinny's a really cool guy. He's got a lot of cool stuff going on. He's no longer touring with Less Than Jake, but he is an active member, producing, writing, doing stuff in the studio. But we had a really good time talking, and you guys are going to hear that next week. So I hope that you come back week in and week out, because you guys make this podcast possible. Thank you for the support. Thank you for listening. If you want to get in touch for any reason at all, the easiest way is tototpodcast@gmail.com. I respond to everything. I listen to all the voicemails you leave me on the hotline, and the number for that is 765-372-8818. So leave me a voicemail, shoot me an email, send me some snail mail. If you hit me up, I will give you my address. Send me some snail mail. Why not? I'm not going to give my address out on this podcast, but I will give you my address if you would like to send me some snail mail. So we've got all the mails covered: the email, the snail mail, and the voicemail. But I'm going to get out of here, but not before I play some awesome tracks from 88 Fingers Louie, one of my favorite bands of my entire life. I love these guys so much. I am going to play Joy Boy, the song that we actually talked about on the podcast, where Dennis wrote this for his son after his son was born. It was on Back on the Streets, their last record with Hopeless. In 1999 is when it came out. It's a wonderful record, so you guys need to go check out Back on the Streets. I'm going to play Joy Boy, like I said, and then after Joy Boy, the lead-off track on their most recent record, Thank You for Being a Friend. The song is called Meds. It is a classic 88 song. You guys are going to love it. Thank You for Being a Friend came out in 2017 on Bird Attack Records. You guys can get that. Just Google 88 Fingers Louie, Bandcamp, Bird Attack Records, whatever. Go get it. It's on iTunes. It's everywhere else. And I guess if you're going to buy stuff on iTunes, you should do it soon, because I heard that iTunes is going away. I'm sure you guys have seen that too. So you can also stream it anywhere you want: Spotify, Apple Music, whatever you kids are doing out there these days. I don't know. But yeah, so we're going to listen to Joy Boy from Back on the Streets, and then Meds from Thank You for Being a Friend. And mind you, there is 18 years between these songs. That's insane. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm out of here. I will see you next week. I love you. You're the best podcast listeners in the world. And we'll see you next week. Chris
could stay